everybody. It's Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon now, 22nd of September, and Sylvia and I have got together because we're busy putting together the finishing touches or the final touches of the upcoming OD Mastery program. And in the conversation, we were just talking about some of the feedback we've been getting from participants or people who have signed up and people who want to sign up. And, there were some general questions that were coming up, and we thought, well, instead of us, trying to answer everybody individually, we thought it would make more sense to maybe just do this little quick video and talk a bit about why this program, what it's all about, and to so you can hear from us directly the answers to some of those questions, which I'm sure is of interest to many of you. So we just thought a little quick video to kind of get that going. So here we are, ready to kind of have that quick summary of things. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to start it off? The main question everybody's saying: what is so different about this OD Mastery program compared to almost anything else that they might have done or heard about out there?
Yeah, probably the difference to any of the other practitioner programs. I think for me, one of the reasons we wrote the program, and this is almost the nub of the thing for me, is that people say to me on programs, every program I'll get one of two questions. Either, how did we learn everything so holistically that in a way we can almost see through people, we can see through a situation, and we can facilitate the room, we can hold that space, we can do it in a way that potentially includes everyone, understanding many different contexts. So that's the one question, is how did we learn that? And the second question people ask me is, can I carry your bag for the next 6 months and then be with me and learn from me? Which might be quite flattering to the ego, but actually I started realizing this is the next step that we need to take. Not just what are the tools and techniques and the framework. In a way, what's that next step? But not only how do we know about it in the head, how do we understand it cognitively, but actually how do we do it? And for me, that really became the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, the whole sense that that there's models, there's frameworks, there's experience that we can draw on and we can talk about, and those are very helpful, and they're kind of they're the tools of the trade, so to speak. But it's how do you make that live in the context of the organization at the moment that whatever the organization's facing in the here and now. How do we just take this to the different level to understand? And it's like, the way I sometimes describe it is like having multiple levels of listening.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't just come through an understanding of OD or an understanding of change or an understanding of whichever specialism we come from, but it's these multiple levels.
Yeah.
And this for me is the difference between being a very competent OD practitioner to really mastering something at a very different level. And listen, none of us are masters. We're always on that journey of going into mastery, but it's like, well, let's at least understand the landscape of what we're talking about. So that's been the big reason for me to want to really help develop this program, be part of it. So
and that takes me into content, because if I start thinking about how the content is different from doing a practitioner program or even doing some of the master's program, is on this one, even though we probably will spend the first half an hour reminding ourselves of the consulting cycle, the stages on the consulting cycle, so that we're working systemically and we are also working with data. If I think of this program, first and foremost, it will look at how we show up. How do we build that confidence? And not just this is the cognitive piece, but what we want to do is work somatically, work ontologically with us in the room, which is also why it's quite a few days, is so that we can actually practice it. And what I'm aiming for there is that you don't have to think about, how am I going to influence here? You start to build an automatic sensibility in your central nervous system of being able to step forward and be perceived by the other as congruent, as authentic, and as confident. And that will build your confidence. The two things together will work to actually build the confidence. I think that's one of the very big takeaways. And so there we'll be working with language, we'll be working with integral life practices, some of the Ken Wilber stuff at quite a detailed level, at some of working somatically so that we embody it. That's the piece that I think people are noticing in our practice that they're actually wanting now. That's why we keep saying it's advanced and it's mastery, because it's moving towards that. I think the other big thing is starting to look at data, but from not just the very logical level, but almost from the unseen and the seen. And so we started to realize, what do we look at in that unseen space? So I've said to many people, under the water surface stuff, but if we were to deepen that, So how do archetypes affect things? What are some of the symbols that we see around that? What's some of the history and how has that impacted? What's the context? So those are the things you can't see, but they absolutely impact. And I think some of the scene stuff is then also think of why we're wearing certain clothes within the world of work. How do people position themselves? Where do they sit? How do they do challenge? Based on what do they make decisions? So in that scene space, what's also some of that unspoken stuff, but actually has a great big impact. Yeah. So, for instance, recently a CEO, he always sat at the head of the table. And so everything about sitting at the head of the table, the head of the family, being the king, being the one in charge, being the one who gets to say everything, being the one we don't challenge, started to become the reality in the organization. So it's almost looking at that depth level so that you can read and see the organization from different perspectives. And then finally, we will touch on data again. And so what we've done is build a data model to make it a little bit easier, because I think a lot of people are holding a lot of organizational frameworks and going, now what?
Yeah.
And I think we've realized from a lot of the coaching that we've been doing with students, with people going through academically, we've realized they're stuck there. And so we've developed a piece that really comes from our coaching practice that talks a little bit more in terms of how to do that in the real world. So that's really what we aim to do in module 1 and 2. But by the end of module 1, you will have quite a strong sensibility about how you're showing up and how you can interrupt that, how you can build different patterns within that. And you'll have quite a strong sense of how to look at the organization in a different way. And remember, both of those things will start to build credibility with your senior leadership team, with the people you're trying to influence. That story of why can we, as quite a small company, walk into big organizations and say, this is what needs to change, or this is what you're not looking at. You will be able to do that as well. And that's really why it's come together for me. If we can make the world better and we are more connected, we're more confident, we're more able to influence, how can that not be helpful?
Yeah, and I think for me as well is that it's a big piece, and I do constantly emphasize this, is really getting in touch with the pace of change for an organization. You know, we can have all these great ideas and models and frameworks and theories, and all of them are very, very valuable without a doubt. But how do we make it live and breathe in a particular organization at a particular time, working with a particular CEO? You know, I think the skills needed and the insights and the understanding and almost the instincts at time around what is the right pace of change for this organization? What can this organization take on at this time? And how do we actually get people behind that in a way that feels congruent, they feel able to take it on? It just makes sense in terms of where they find themselves at this time. So this pacing thing, and it's not just rate of change, but it's all these multiple levels of listening again to really get to the understanding of what is it that will really help, will provide the biggest help at this time. And we might be talking a week, 3 months, 6 months, a year, it doesn't matter. But that understanding and that insight, I think, is also one of the real signs of mastering this at that sort of level of what can this organization take on at this time, and how is it actually going to ultimately get to where it's trying to get to. And I think it's quite a unique, not a unique, it's a multifaceted skill set to be able to kind of really understand that, get that, and communicate that, and get people behind that.
And I think, Lisa, the one thing we haven't really touched on is we will spend time looking at 2 very distinctive facilitation models. So not just the model, but also the how. We'll actually spend time in facilitating that. And the reason for that is, it's hard to tell your executives they're doing something, or it's hard to sometimes say to the organization, or are we doing this, or it looks like this. I mean, I just think this weekend of how did people in Thomas Cook realize things weren't going well, and then how were they too scared to say something, or how did they not say something? And it's not just at the financial level. There would have been indicators along the way that have taken them to this difficult situation they're in this weekend. So you start thinking about, how do we actually put that forward? And when we look at the facilitation in the workshop, we've built it as a group activity so that we're working together. It's not that, let's videotape you and see what you're doing wrong. It's actually, let's work together so that we learn to work in that whole system, that we learn how better to actually just handle ourselves around the boardroom table or around the leadership table, but then that also means we're actually starting to change the conversation. And that's really what I'm after, is people that in the organizations can help to make it better, to help make them successful. I think what's happening for Thomas Cook this weekend is painful and hard, not only for the customers but also for the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's much more to say, and I'd love to do more of that, but I think what we want to do is try and just capture the essence of what makes this program different and why do we feel so passionately about it. Because, you know, we could carry on just doing what we do now, but actually our feeling is that there's a real need in the marketplace for this. But more importantly, as organizations keep facing more and more challenges, more and more change, more and more complexity, actually we need in people that are willing, able and want to work at this sort of mastery level. And so we just feel incredibly passionate about this, and you know, we're really excited to get this going, and really would love, you know, just trying to get as many people on the journey with us as possible. So hopefully this video, was anything more you wanted to say, or was this a good place to kind of halt for now?
I think for us it's let us have as many people out there working in this way, because it makes it better, and that's always been the thing that I've been after, in a more connected and confident and congruent way. And so there's still a few places on the next program, and then there's 2 coming up. And so have a look at that, have a look at the details of that. There's time for you to plan, time for you to motivate for the budget. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you, and especially a lot of you I've already met, and maybe some new faces. And let us also learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. This is a good
white belts on the mat.
Good journey to be on together. So
yes. Yeah.
So anyway, so just wanted to make this quick video. I hope this has been helpful. As always, if any more questions, please just drop us a line, or you know, give us a quick phone call, and we'll do our best to answer as we go forward. But anything, please just let us know, and hopefully we'll all get together end of October.
And if you want more details, they are up on the website now, and the website is up.
Finally.
Yes. Thank you, Lisa.
So good news. Good on all those fronts.
Thanks for your time, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Great.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.